Welcome back to Trucks and Junk. Today on part 5 of the junkyard golf cart build, we're going to be working on the brakes, figuring out a way to keep the engine cool underneath the seat, and take this thing for a ride to see if it's going to do what it's supposed to do. So if you guys haven't seen part 1 through 4, go check that out because it's very good information to get you to this step. Alright, let's get to it. Okay, so what I plan on using for my brake system is I've got this old brake system off of a scooter that I got out of the junkyard. It was wrecked. It's the front brakes, so I might have a little bit of fun fabricating stuff for that. This master cylinder is set up to have a handle on it. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to change this over to where it's a push rod coming from the pedal through the floorboard. And then I gotta figure out a way to mount this to the frame at the brake disc, so I'm probably gonna have to make a bracket to do that. But that's my plans for this. Since I've got them, I'm gonna use them. There's no sense in buying new ones if I've got them. So now my plan for the master cylinder on this, like I said, I'm going to make a push rod for it to go through the floor. So what I did was I got this long bolt and I shaved down the head on it and drilled out the center of it to the diameter of the pin in the master cylinder. So now this bolt can go over top of that pin and fit inside there to where now the bolt can be the push rod and it shouldn't fall off because it's inside there, just like so. And then I can bring this through the floor to the back side of the pedal. And then as I push down the pedal, it should push the rod, which will engage the brake. And then I need to figure out how to mount this to the frame of the golf cart. So what I've done is I got a piece of pipe that fits this master cylinder, just like a set of handlebars. And then what my plan is I'm gonna weld that to the inside of the frame like so. So right here on the inside of the frame, I'm gonna weld it. I might even drill a hole through it and bolt it as well, just to make it stronger. And then bring this push rod through the floor into it. And then on this side, I'm gonna weld that push rod to the bar that comes off the brake pedal originally. So that's what I'm thinking is gonna happen. We're gonna give that a try. What I've done, I drilled 2 holes in it. Gave me a good spot. Be able to weld down the side, and real good in the center. And I could probably weld across the back too. Make it really strong. Okay, so push the pedal, and and it closes the brakes. Just don't have a whole lot of travel on it, so we'll have to figure out what we can do about adding some travel to it so it don't feel like you're hitting a brick wall every time you hit the brakes. As you can tell, I welded the nut to the shaft of the brake pedal, and since I used a nut that fits the bolt, I can actually adjust it if I needed to right there with a socket, turn it in and turn it out. And it's welded to that shaft, and then down here we have it welded to the frame, which holds the master cylinder, and the bolt comes into there. So as we move the pedal, it moves the bolt, and the bolt pushes on the master cylinder. Alright, now we figured that out, let's do the rear. Alright, so now my plan is I'm going to take this brake caliper and I'm going to try to make a metal bracket for it. Possibly mount it somewhere around here. So as long as I can make a metal bracket that comes off this frame and bolt it to this, it should be able to sit right here and stop the golf cart. At this point, we can now clear the caliper. Now we've got to space this out to weld this part to the frame. This part will be about perfect with the brake disc, but we'll have to put spacers in here to space it out so we can have the space we need. So for testing purposes only, I'm probably going to use these nuts for the spacers for now. And then once I get the measurements of what I need as far as length of spacers, then I'll probably go buy a piece of pipe to cut and make the spacers. Alright, now that I've made that metal bracket, we'll see how this fits. So now that metal bracket bolts pretty good to the front, or can weld right there to the frame. And I got them spaced out, bolted to the brake caliper there, which is sitting right over the rotor. Tell you what though, I think now would probably be a good time to go back to my original plan and do crossbars from here down here to the frame. It serves as two purposes really. It'll strengthen the engine up real good, and it gives me another welding point here to be able to weld this top of the bracket to. Well, yeah, let's see what that looks like. Yeah, it worked out very well. Alright, so now I have this bar coming up here, and I'll weld it to there after I grind all this powder coat off of it. And then, as you can tell, the brake caliper can now weld to this side of it. You put the brake caliper right there, which is just about perfect. and then I can weld this end down here. So now I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side, grind it down, be ready to weld this together. Now that we have that bracket made, the bars welded in, and everything ready to go, now we just need to fit it in place where we're going to want it to be, and then clamp her down and weld her in. So sit her right where we're going to want it to be at for the best possible clamping force on the rotor. Looks to be right about there, but you don't want it rubbing the caliper on the back side, so you don't want it up against it. So you want to leave a little bit of space there. Clamp her down and weld it in. Let's adjust my clamps to where when I get her in position, thinking that sounds like you'd have good clamping force right there. Alright, I can get a socket on there. I have proper braking pad on there, and it's not rubbing the rotor. I think that's where I'm gonna weld it in at. So, like I said, I can now weld this here, and weld it here and down there. And I can get a socket on both these bolts now to where I can service these brakes. So that's what we're gonna do now. Okay, now that we got brakes on that thing, wiring harness, and it runs, it stops, that thing's technically ready to go for a ride. But since we don't want to cook the engine, since it's an air-cooled style engine, basically trapped inside of a box once we put the seat on it, we'll probably end up cooking the engine because there's no airflow underneath there to keep it cool. So my plan to keep this engine cool underneath the seat is I went to the junkyard and I picked me up a fan out of a Toyota Corolla, and I'm gonna mount this underneath the seat because there's plenty of room for air to get in and out of there. You just gotta have something to move that air. So I don't want this to run all of the time because it would drain the battery and the charge that I'm putting into the battery, because basically everything it would be making would be running that fan. So my plan is I got on Amazon and I got this fan relay switch kit. I know this is normally made for coolant style engines, but this style has this little sensor right here that when it reaches 200 degrees, it switches inside of here and then gives a ground to a relay to be able to turn on that fan. And then once it gets back to 185 degrees, then this loses connection and it turns the fan off. Therefore, until that engine reaches 200 degrees, that fan is not going to come on. And then once it does come on, it'll bring that engine back down to 185 and then shut off. And that way my batteries can stay charged and my charging system can keep up. That also being said, I'm probably going to have to put a bigger style battery in it to be able to keep up with this fan running all the time. So I'll probably have to put a car battery in it or a lawnmower battery in it instead of a small four-wheeler or that kind of battery. But there's plenty of room under there to do that, so that's not going to be a problem. So now that that's my plan, and these engines, since they're air-cooled, they can get all the way up to 400 degrees and be fine. So this is almost keeping it too cold, but I have a feeling once we're out there actually riding it hard, that fan might stay on a lot. So we're going to give it a try, see how it works. Okay, so this is what I got right now. I just got this loosely set in here. Got the fan itself grounded to the engine. Okay. Then I got this stuff loosely put in here. The red wire from the fan goes to the relay, and then the red wire that comes out of the relay, it goes to the breaker switch. The breaker switch goes to the battery. And then this brown wire is supposed to be what comes on when you turn the key to the cart on. But right now I've just got it wired to the breaker. So right now, technically, this wire here is the one that goes to the sensor that goes on the motor. So as long as I touch this to the motor right now, that fan should come on, which it does. So we know all my circuitry is correct. So now we're going to test putting this temperature sensor in here. And I'm thinking if I just sit it here in the fins and figure out a way to mount that somewhere here on the engine like this, you know, where it's going to be the hottest. But for now, I should just be able to sit it in the fins here, start this thing, and make sure that when this gets to temperature, it cuts the fan on. So we're going to go ahead and try that and see. There it went. Yay. Now let's kick the fan on. It'll run and then pull air through here and then put it back down to 185, shut back off, and then kick back on. Once it gets back up to 200 degrees again. So that way the charging system can still charge the battery up real good, allow it to be able to run the fan. Alright, I moved this thing closer to the engine and it's already shut itself off. So now we're going to let it do a whole nother cycle. But this thing don't run very long at all. It cools that engine down pretty quick. There it goes, it just came on. Got that air moving. It's already shut itself off. Like that's that quick of a cycle on this. Alright, I moved the fan farther away from the engine. Let's see how long it takes. Want to take bets on it? Alright, there it came on. Like I said, it's a pretty good distance away from the engine now. And I got the engine idling a little high to bring it up to temperature. It's already turned off. So I think that's going to work perfect. what I got. So I got the fan mounted in right here. Should pull plenty of air through here, blow it right on the engine for us. Got the wiring all neatly put up here. Got it wired into the red wire on the ignition switch right there. It won't come on unless the key's on. So basically, the key's off, fan don't come on. Even if it's grounded, key's on, the fan will come on when the temperature gets to the right temperature. So, still got that temperature sensor just sitting there for now. I'm gonna figure out a way to get that mounted. I think it laying on its side actually got this part hotter quicker, which is a good thing. I might figure out a way to mount it down in here somewhere on its side. I know it comes with this little brass washer that it'll screw into. So I don't know if I can maybe fix this to the motor somewhere. That way that can screw in and out and be serviceable. Then the hot wire goes through that circuit breaker that comes with it and then goes over there, and I mounted it to the hot side of the starter solenoid. So that way when I do my battery swaps and everything, I ain't got a bunch of wires going to the battery. And then like I said, the fan is grounded to the motor right there. Okay, so now what I've done is I used a thin piece of spring metal and I bent it to where it pulls back on that side, and then bend it at the bottom to where it pulls back on the bottom to where now it's up against the cylinder wall in a perfect spot that's going to get nice and hot. So now it's in there good enough that we can take this thing for a ride. So now's the fun part, guys. I'm gonna cut me up some seats real quick out of this thin plywood. I'll probably regret it using the thin stuff, I'm sure, but I'm gonna cut me up some seats real quick out of this thin plywood just to take this thing for the test ride. Let's do it. Okay, now that we got this thing running, driving, cooling system, brakes, we're gonna take this thing for a quick little ride, little easy ride, just make sure everything stays together and works like it should, because next weekend I've got family coming in, so we're going to put 2 or 3 people on this thing and put it through its paces next weekend. So you definitely don't want to miss that video. But for this one, we're just going to ride around a little bit, make sure everything stays together and works like it should. So let's get to it.
brake. Now we can take this thing in the backyard. I actually got a pretty good little hill in my backyard here. I'm gonna see if it can climb that hill with me on it with no problem. We'll see how that goes. Okay guys, that's it for today's video. Unfortunately, I'm running out of daylight to continue testing for you, but it did do really well going up and down the road, and it also pulled the hill in the backyard very well. So I'm very impressed with the build that we've got so far. Now, like I said, next week I've got family coming in, so it'll be a good time to test and make sure that this thing will haul 3 people down the road. I know it has 2 seats originally, but you can always add a 3rd in the back. So as long as it'll haul 3 people up and down the road, that'll be awesome. And then we're going to take it out here to the field, because let's be honest, golf carts were invented to go through a field. So I want to make sure this thing will do what it needs to out in the field. And we're also going to do a top speed run. So you guys comment down below and you tell me what you think this will top out at. I have an idea, but I want to see what you guys think it'll top out at. So if you guys don't want to miss that next week, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. God bless you all. You guys have a happy holiday, and I'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like